Hey everyone, thank you for coming to Earth. And once again, Granny Deepsea giving us a message. I want to clarify something. Granny Deepsea is not religious, but since religion does hide a lot of the truth from us, she does have to talk about it. So take it away, Granny.
Thank you for coming to Earth, everybody. That's right. Now, religion, I have said it before, and I'm going to say it right now again. It's groups of people saving information. So, the relegioning of the population has already occurred. We have reached the end of the time that we needed them to save the truth until we're here. We're at that point where if we don't do something, we're going to lose our whole planet. So, in order to get that job done, we have to look at religion and see what each one has saved for us. So today, I'm going to talk about a very misunderstood box called the Ark of the Covenant. These are my opinions. So, because I get to have opinions, I'm just going to tell you my opinions. And I'll refer to some facts as we go. So, this Ark of the Covenant was doing stuff in the ancient world that made it to the point where people called it God. God in a box. Now, when God would talk, 49,000 would die of a plague. That's an interesting God. This is the God that visits the sins of the father down generations, down to the third generation. This is all sounding like radiation poisoning to me. So, is there any type of device that could have been radioactive back in that day? Well, yeah, this Ark of the Covenant thing. So, I started to look and see what's the story of this box. In the last sentence of the book of Genesis, it says they put Joseph's body in a coffin in Egypt. Well, that word is ark, the same word that they use ark all the time. So, in order to find out what that box is, then you need to understand who was in there. That was Joseph. So Joseph is the one who his brothers sold him into slavery. He was wearing that many-colored coat, and they said, "I'm sorry, dude," and they threw him into slavery because he was the favorite. And he ended up in Egypt, and because he could tell the king what the prophecies were, he was kept alive. Well, he had God with him. That's the quote in the Bible. Well, that means he had the teraphim, the rock that came from Padam Aram. So you have to go way back and find out that Abraham brought this rock with him to the land of Canaan, and this is where in the Egyptian ark boxes could be found. Well, anytime any of his people that had one of these went into Egypt, there were plagues and there were problems, and they all had to leave with their little rock. They were investigating stuff, because what's the truth about God at that point? What are the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt have no other God before me. It doesn't say there are no other gods. It says, don't bring them near me. Why? Because the things that you are calling gods are actually power sources. So, change the word. In that instance, sometimes they talk about the big guy. So if you don't believe in that, that's fine. But that's what sometimes they're referring to. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the box and rocks that go in boxes and special kinds of tables that are in front, special types of devices that have buttons on them and crystalline rocks. So there's stuff going on back there that's power source related. We've forgotten about it. It disappeared a long time ago. No one knows where it is. They have a copy of it in Washington. They've done tests on it in the desert. And so when the wind blows through the wings of this thing, it creates a static energy charge. Well, that's electricity. So, I want to know about when that rock went into that box. So we have to follow the rock through the suns. Now, interesting fact about the book of Genesis, none of the firstborn sons received their proper inheritance. So you have to know a little bit about the Jewish laws back then. If you had 3 sons in your family, the father, when he was going to die, would divide the everything into 4. And the oldest son would get 2 portions. Why? Because he's expected to take care of everybody in case anything happens. So he gets the double portion, and then the other ones get the single portion. He also gets the household idol. That's the teraphim, the rock I'm talking about that they brought from Padam Aram when they came to Canaan. So, you got to follow that rock through the sons that ended up inheriting it. Even though they weren't the firstborn son, there was an inheritance. In one case, one of the sons had to go back to Padam Aram and get another one. Wife, she sat on it, pretending that she was having her monthly time, and she ended up dying in childbirth, and her son was a head taller than most people. The Benjamites ended up being much taller than everyone else. That's what I'm talking about. That the sins, or whatever you want to call it, putting them forth onto future generations is what radiation poisoning is. Sometimes those radiation poisoning facts ended up making them like taller or bigger or stronger. Sometimes it ended up making them hairier and stranger. So you have to follow the genetic situation, realizing that there was probably radiation involved in different groups meeting, and when certain groups met each other, bad things happened, and that's why people weren't supposed to be mixing back then, just like you're not supposed to mix the power sources they were calling God. Now, in the last sentence of the book of Genesis, the son that has God, the rock, the teraphim, ends up in an Egyptian ark box. Now, it is said, you're going to go into Egypt, when you leave, if you take my bones with you, God will be with you. That's the quote. Now you got to go way into the future, and then they become the slaves of Pharaoh, and now Moses is going to lead them out. There's a rumor among the smart people that the box I'm talking about that had Joseph's bones in it was buried under the Nile. Oh my gosh, that's exactly where I would have needed it to be buried for all the crazy things that happened right around the Nile. And so Moses has the scepter now, which is the thing that actually activates it. And he can make all kinds of plagues happen just in accordance with what God's wishes are to make Pharaoh let these people go. Well, when they leave, they take an ark box. So at first, Pharaoh says, okay, go, deal with your God. Then all at once, the army says, dude, he took an ark box. Then the most powerful army on the planet at the time chases these supposed slaves across the desert, gets to them, and God, that's the box, shows that I forget the word. Anyway, it's a column of smoke. So that column of smoke keeps the Egyptian army away from 600,000 people with all their flocks and all their stuff and their wives and their kids and everything they have, as they walk through, supposedly, that dividing of the seas. Well, there's other places in the book where it says this box divides the seas. So I'm not going to say it doesn't. And if it does, though, well, we have to realize what any army engineer will tell you. 600,000 people with their flocks, even if it's a good distance left and right, it's going to take weeks for them to get across. Sorry. So if they were holding back Pharaoh's army with this box for weeks, that's some box. Now, what happened to it? That's in Exodus. So in Exodus, we find out that we have to build another one. Well, why? Because while he was on the mountain, they took the gold off and made a golden calf. They took the acacia wood and they burned it to make the golden calf. And so he gets down from the mountain to put these things that he had into this box, you needed that box or you're going to get radiation poisoning. And so the box is gone. He goes, where's the box? So he brought a big sin upon the people. Excuse me. What happens next? Oh, he has to kill everybody. So the Levites have to come out. He grinds up the stones, throws them in the water, makes them drink the water, and tells the Levites to kill everybody. Is that story all in one place? No! You have to go looking in different books to find it. This is the kind of crazy logic puzzle story they're giving us right now. That box gets actually taken apart, buried, then Ruth has a piece of it. Some interesting no-named guy in Judges has a piece of it, the ephod. We start to see it being rebuilt. By the time of David, we have it back. Now it's winning wars again because it's so powerful, but it's also making people radioactive. And it explodes in Judges and hurts a lot of people. And then finally, after a lot of bad stuff happens, at one point, one of the kings goes to Damascus, and he comes back and he tells the high priest, I want the layout of the temple in Damascus here. I want their altar here. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. An altar was part of the things that made it powerful. So When these guys were building this stuff back then and radiating everything, it was a big problem. The authorities finally came and took them all away, and now we don't know where that Ark is. But what we can figure out is that it was probably intended to do good, not evil. What good could it be? Well, let's look at a spec. Look at Google. Ask for a ground plan of the Temple of Solomon. And there's going to be a little spot called the Holy of Holies, and it's going to be shaped like a battery. And the Ark of the Covenant is shaped like that battery. So it's kind of like saying, put this here. And when you put that in there, then it activates the temple. The temple has a spire on it. This could be for communications, just like the communication spires we have now. This could be for putting out some type of energy, like a Tesla field. This could be for shields for our planet, because we don't want anything to hit us. And it could also be, because the temples are always over water, it could be as a water purification system. So these are just things that have come into my head. Maybe that battery runs all of those things that I'm talking about right now. So it's a battery. Batteries can be put into different devices. But in any case, see, I'm not talking about religion. I mean, I have some religious feelings. I certainly believe in God. But what's important is that we put together the pieces of the puzzle that will enable us to take back our planet and make the planet healthy again. Thank you for coming to Earth.